Hi, my name is Shaka V. Greer. I'm a journalist, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing Larnell Lewis. He is a Grammy Award-winning musician. He's a composer, he's a producer, and he's also an educator. So I want to welcome you to this chat. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm really looking forward to this because I'm a huge jazz fan, and I know there's a lot of other jazz fans watching. But before we get to the chat, we're going to watch a few of your videos. What are we going to be seeing?
Yes, so this is going to be a video of a performance from the Toronto Jazz Fest of my band playing a composition of mine called The City Lights.
Great. So yeah, let's see that now. Enjoy, and we'll see you when that video's over. Hi, so we're back. We've just seen music by LARNELL Lewis, and we're going to have a chat. Great music, some of my favorite. So I wanted to, many of us know you here, but you were raised in the church, and that music played through your music and your last album. But what did you grow up listening to? Was it secular music or just spiritual music? Who were your influences?
In my house, definitely 99.9 billion% Christian music.
Yeah.
I mean, my dad, to kind of throw back a little bit, being of, Caribbean descent, we're aware of, the different artists, but that music wasn't often played in my house, or anything that was maybe known as more the progressive or aggressive, I should say, side, depending. My dad was a musical director at the church. And so best believe we were listening to Mighty Clouds of Joy and Andre Crouch. Eventually it got into Kirk Franklin and Fred Hammond, but there was a bit of some, Ella Fitzgerald and Quincy Jones.
Oh, I love them. Yeah.
Some George Strait.
Yeah.
Almost country, so.
So were you the type of kid going to school and listening to what your friends were listening to? Because hip hop was a big thing. So did you have to sneak it?
Absolutely. My parents would come in my room when I first got my stereo at home. I got it for Christmas, this 2 tape deck with CD, the whole 9.
Yeah.
And I'd fall asleep to 93.7, and
yeah, I remember it.
Yeah, and I think one night I fell asleep, Busta Rhymes was on, and they're like, boy, if something happens to you when you're gonna die listening to this stuff, guy. So
the conservative Caribbean household that many people don't know about, but yes. Man. I wasn't raised in one, but I know it's the real thing. So what drew you to jazz?
For me, it was about, there were instances where I engaged with jazz. My dad, again, being the musical director at the church, would tell me about the music, tell me the styles, mention very specific, musicians like Art Tatum and, of course, Oscar Peterson, jazz drummers like Art Blakey, and Elvin Jones. But when I got to secondary school, I went to Mayfield Secondary School, Arts High School. And I had a few teachers there that really took me under their wing and exposed me to as much jazz and high-level jazz as possible.
Wow. Yeah. So when did you know this is what I'm going to be recording? This is what I'm going to be playing? Was it Humber? Because you went to school in Humber. Now you're a professor there. But is that where you found it? Yeah.
I mean, I had been writing music, and actually some of the music on the album was influenced from when I was about 14. And so spending a lot of time playing with a lot of different musicians and really honing my skills, not only as a performer, but someone that understands how a band can interact. Took me a long time to get to the place to release my own music. But I would definitely say that I knew from a young age I wanted to be a professional musician. My parents really did their best to keep an encouraging environment. And when I was in high school is when I started to really understand that I can officially do this as a full-time job.
Yeah, career. Before I get to my next question, what drew you to the drums? Did you try out other instruments and land on it, or did you know drums?
I started at 2. I think being in church, you're seeing someone just do this all day, and so that was something that was exciting to me. But I had tried other instruments, and that was the one that stuck. And it was what made sense in my family. Again, my dad being the musical director, he plays keys and guitar. So if it's him and me, then we could hold down a band.
That's so nice. So many people may be familiar with your work from Snarky Puppy, Grammy award-winning work. How did you meet the band and become part of it? How did that happen?
The Rex.
In Toronto?
In Toronto.
Wow.
University. I was there with Rich Brown and Rinse the Algorithm.
Great.
And we were paired up that night, not as a double bill, but Rinse had actually a monthly residency where we would play the last Saturday of every month, and Snarky was scheduled just before us. And so, Tom at the Rex, the music manager there, had mentioned to Snarky about me, mentioned me to them quite a few times. And then finally, the perfect storm, we were booked on the same night. And I saw them play live, which I'd seen their videos only in recent months. And then they saw me play, and the relationship was built from there.
Wow. So you go from family church, you're used to collaborating, you become part of Snarky Puppy, and everything explodes. Then in 2018, you did your first solo album. Was that intimidating? Was it exhilarating? Was it everything? Talk about that.
It was everything. I mean, it gets so deep. I will edit as much as I can just to give everyone an idea of what it is. But the short story was that this music had been recorded as of 2016. All right, it was done, needed to be completed for grants. Thank you for all the granting agencies for the support. But needed to release it, got it mixed, mastered, everything, and just needed to figure out my whole release plan. Got caught up with teaching in school and touring and kept putting myself on the back burner. December 2017, my son was born, Kari Micah. He's now about 2.5, going on 3 in December. He was born with a condition called Down syndrome.
Okay.
And with a lot of, like, a whole host of other medical issues. And so he spent about 8 months in hospital. So for me, actually, when I had released the record, he was still in hospital. And I realized for me that it was a thing where, you know, when you encounter a situation like that, you start to look at life different, and not in a sense where you start to rush things, but you now prioritize your output in such a way where things that you wanted to express, you just express. You know?
Yeah.
And so that was, you know, amongst a bunch of other things, was a part of what really encouraged me to just make the push and decide that, you know what, I'm gonna make this move. I'm gonna represent myself, a front-facing artist, and really let everyone know who I am, you know. And not only for the sake of just kind of telling people who I am, but to share my story in tandem with also sharing my son's story.
That's powerful. And it's beautiful. And I think it's interesting because we're going through turbulent times, a pandemic, politically. And so a lot of artists now are digging even deeper. And you and I were talking about that. Let's talk about this new project.
Yeah.
It's in its infancy, but how's it going?
You know what? It's going okay. It's going as planned, in that I'm, you know, just building demos, doing the good old voice note thing. If I'm, like, rocking my daughter to sleep, I'm just whispering into the phone anything I can. The wipers, you know, on a rainy day are inspiring me. The idea behind this project was to really, and it's funny because it was built obviously before the pandemic. So the idea for me was to take this journey that I was starting as of February 17th. That was my new year, right? I didn't want to celebrate it with everybody else. I was going through a whole lot of pressure with stuff. I had just crossed over into full-time at Humber College after working there for 10 years as a professor. And so, you know, finally deciding that I'm going to make the pivot, you know, again, and really refine, you know, work on the schedule, work on the timing, work on getting a team together, you know. Shout out to Joy, my wife, Siobhan out there. Thank you so much, Emma, as well. Really helping me just take my whole entire career in business to another level. And so New Year's being February 17th for me, making a lot of changes. And it was a journey for my mental health. It was a journey for my process of understanding how to live with a child, you know, with complexity, you know, and then adding a second one who's, like, you know, turning 10 months, going on 17 years right now. And so really just understanding how to prioritize things in my life, and understanding that, you know, there is freedom in this journey of structure.
Yes, it's an interesting thing because art is prioritizing both having the confidence to put ourselves forward. It's a challenge, and also prioritizing that time to create when life is always happening. And it's interesting because what you're creating is a legacy for your children also. It marks their lives as well. So that I love that. We have a few more minutes. And I want to shout out to people like you and Esperanza Spalding and Robert Glasper, who are bringing a whole new voice to jazz. Also, jazz, an African-American art form that for years became white in image, is now getting this youthful, eclectic group who are bringing the spice and energy back to it. How does that feel? Because to be part of this new generation.
It's interesting. It's interesting because, you know, at some point in life, you realize where you are amongst your peers, whether it's you're now starting to realize you're mentoring a lot more people. In some cases where, you know, your pillars and your mentors are passing on, and you understand now where you are in that, you know, along that journey, along that highway, where you start pulling people along with any information that you have. And so it's been, like I said, interesting because it means now that the mantle being in my hand, I have a lot of responsibility. Yes. And that means to understand those that came before me, understand those that are coming up after me, and also just taking the time to make sure I do not cheat myself out of an opportunity to express the feelings and experiences that I've had that will help people, in my opinion.
Yes.
And so the exciting part is being able to connect with people like, you know, Esperanza, or being a part of a collective like Snarky Puppy, or even being recognized on the international stage for not only my drumming but also my ability to write and my position in the community, I guess you can say. And so similar to preparing for the album, it's been everything, and especially during, not only the pandemic, but then all the heightened awareness with a lot of the BIPOC and, Black Lives Matter that's happening right now. Like it's a range of emotions that I'm learning to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. I think I have a couple more minutes. Last question for you. For an artist who's coming up, who's liking a genre that's not on popular radio, like jazz, like the blues, what do you tell them? What advice do you have for them?
Ooh, man. Okay. First of all, continue to listen to music and write what you feel. I think that's the biggest thing. Write what you feel and put yourself around others that will always push you, because you will start to expose yourself to, other genres that you confuse with, let's say, jazz, or be able to take yourself into different realms and different areas because you're now connecting with other musicians. And so I think building a community, connecting to the community, because it doesn't have to just be your smaller isolated community.
Yeah.
And just feeling free to open yourself up.
Okay. I want to thank you for being so generous, allowing me to speak with you. I'm such a fan of your work, and I'm looking forward to this new album when it comes out. Yeah. Please stay safe and healthy. And for everyone watching this, if you haven't, please check out Larnell Lewis's work. He's a great performer, and you will find a lot of interesting, rich things there. And thank you, Global Toronto, for inviting me. Everyone stay safe and healthy. Bye.